How is it rocking, Dwayne Nation? Stay here because we are just about to get underway. In the meantime, please like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. We put out weekly sports content, and we want to continue to build up Dwayne Nation and the brand that is Dwayne Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy. Welcome in, Dwayne Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Genoa Agudelo, and we are here for week 2 of the NFL fantasy season. Week 1 was crazy, a lot of sloppy football, but it's still football, and it was fun to watch. Injuries have crept in already into the season, and we're going to dive into every single game of the week 2 slate. But before we do that, how you feeling today, Genoa?
Yo, Dewey Nation, Justin. I'm doing so great, Justin. I'm so excited to kick off week 2 tomorrow night. It's going to be a pretty good divisional battle there in Miami. But, Justin, I'm doing great. I'm so excited to break down these games, tell you who to start, who to not to start, who's going to win, who's not going to win. You mentioned there was some sloppy football last week, so I'm very excited to see, what teams have improved. And we're back to football, Justin, week 2. I lost in a couple of my leagues, Justin, so we need to figure out how to get some wins, Justin. I know you too. We have to figure out to get some wins, and everybody out there in Dewey Nation will help you out.
Yeah, and before we dive into everything, Dwayne Nation, if you could like, comment, subscribe, share all the good things to help this brand grow. We just hit over 100 subscribers recently, a night on YouTube, so a nice accomplishment there, and we just want to keep growing. And also just to detail what this episode's going to look like. Obviously, it's similar to what last week is, but I'm going to kind of give you that detailed list. So we're going through every single game, Thursday night to Monday night. We're going to have sprinkled in our starts of the week as well as our sit of the week. We're going to pick, the game winners, who's going to win each game, as well as our kicker of the week at the very end of the episode. So let's dive right into it. And as you mentioned, Thursday night, tomorrow night, or by the time you're watching this, it's today. We got the Bills heading into Miami, and it's going to be an interesting game because it's a division rival matchup, but we might be without Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane in this game. Mostert's already ruled out. Devon is a game time decision, so make sure in your leagues, if he's available, Jeff Wilson, even Jalen Wright are going to factor into this game, especially if Achane sits. So Jeff Wilson kind of slots into maybe a high tier RB3. If Achane sits, maybe a low end RB2. So I would probably start him in a situation where if you have Achane and you can scoop up Jeff Wilson, it's good to slot him in unless you have a better option. As for the other options in this game, obviously you're starting Tyreek and Waddle, as well as Josh Allen. Keep Kincaid in your lineups. And then I think the two questions of concern, maybe Keon Coleman and Tua Tagovailoa. What are your thoughts on those two guys?
Yeah, I think both of these guys can have great games, Justin. They are in Miami, so you know how I feel about Tua when he's playing at home in Miami. It's a little bit shaky, though, when it comes to primetime games there. Tua has been underwhelming there. I know they faced each other, I think, on the last game of the season last year, and Tua was just very underwhelming there. Not so dominant there from Tua. And even in the playoff game that next week when they went to Kansas City, just very underwhelming there from Tua. So we need to have a big primetime game. Tua, I know a couple years ago he had that scary moment in Cincinnati on a Thursday night as well. So he has to be able to go out there and perform. He's not going to have his two, featured backs, as you just mentioned, Justin. And on the other side there to Keon Coleman, I actually like him to have a good game, Justin. I'm thinking, I'm actually feeling his first touchdown is going to come this tomorrow night or tonight here in Miami. You got to remember that with the Bills, it's going to be like this every week. There's going to be someone different scoring. Obviously, Josh Allen's going to be at the center, the nucleus of all things Buffalo there. James Cook is great, and so maybe he could have a great game. But I do like Keon Coleman to finish with about 6 catches, 89 yards, and his first career touchdown.
No, I love that. And is there those is Josh? So obviously Josh Allen is a must start. Keon Coleman looking to get his first touchdown. Hopefully he might have Jalen Ramsey's shadow, but Brian Thomas was able to do some things last week, so that'll be something of interest. And I didn't mention, which you were, thanks for bringing him up, James Cook. He had a solid first week of the season. I think this week will be better for him. So he's obviously a must start. But yeah, Tua, I think now that the running backs might be out or downgraded to a sense, I think it's gonna lead them to passing the rock more. I expect both receivers to go for 100 plus. I think that it's kind of in the cards for that. And I expect I do expect a Buffalo victory though. I think Tua, although he is home, he might struggle a bit not being able to rely on those running backs. And Josh Allen at the end of Thursday night will be considered a top MVP candidate, although early in the season. And they're going to win this game 27-21.
Yeah, Justin, I'm going to agree with you right there. I think in the first half, Tua is going to have a lot of difficulty moving the football there. And I think on the other side, it's going to be opposite. Josh Allen won't have any difficulty there. He already has one game kind of with that new offense, post Stephon Diggs. And so, Buffalo, they're going to get after it. They want to win this division. They want to show that they're still the best team in that division. And it starts, by, going out and beating one of their division rivals there. Josh Allen, I don't think he's going to miss a beat at all. He's going to be able to get the ball to his new playmakers there. You mentioned, Dalton Kincaid had a disappointing week, but pretty much most tight ends did. So I think he's going to be able to help moving the ball and all. And the way that Josh Allen is able to move the football through his legs, Justin, it's just very fascinating to watch there. And that's going to be a key factor there. I don't think Miami's going to be able to stop the rushing abilities of Josh Allen. I do think James Cook has a little bit of a better game. And so I just think that Buffalo is going to be able to roll them over. I have a similar score. I'm going to go with 30-21 Buffalo. I do think Tyreek Hill does have a touchdown. It's just I need to see a little bit more what Tua can do on his own without relying on the running game. You're not going to have Mostert. I don't think they'll have A-Chain Justin. It's not looking good at all for him to play. And I think that Jeff Wilson, he's a little bit rusty there. And hopefully they kind of start off with the rookie. They drafted out of the 4th round and Jalen Wright. I think he's going to be pretty good. But I think that Dolphins offense is just so stagnant in the first half. It just leads Buffalo to kind of just take the lead and never look back. And so definitely have Buffalo taking this one tomorrow night.
Very good, very good. Moving on to the Sunday slate, we have the Saints heading to Dallas. And I think this game is going to be very telling for the Saints. If they put up a very good fight and even possibly win it, they might be the real deal and better than I expected. Or there'll be a flash in the pan who got a good matchup against the Panthers last week and took advantage. But looking into the game even further, you have to start Chris Olave, although he had a bad game last week and a blowout victory. Derek Carr, I think you could argue as a streaming quarterback, but it's somewhat of a tough matchup. But I do think he's going to have to throw all game. Kamara is a start. Jerome Ford had a really solid week last week against Dallas, even though they were getting their breaks beat off of them. And then on the flip side, you got to start Dak. You got to start CeeDee Lamb. And I think it really ends there with notable fantasy options. What do you think?
Yeah, Justin, looking at this game, I feel like the Saints will probably come out on defense with a few strong stops there. But I do think that mid-second quarter leading into to halftime, I think that Dak Prescott on this offense is going to figure out. Obviously, we don't think we'll see Jake Ferguson there. They're tied in. That was a breakout last year. He's hurt. He has an MCL sprain, similar to the injury that Jordan Love suffered. And it's going to be interesting to see who Dak Prescott's going to get the football to other than CeeDee Lamb, and I do like a guy by the name of I believe I'm saying this right, Jalen Tolbert. There was some snaps there. There were some targets there last week, and now Tolbert was drafted, not that long ago. I think he was drafted in the 2022 draft, and they have had trouble kind of like going to him in his career. I know they've had many mouths to feed in Dallas, but I think this might be a guy that could score a touchdown there in Dallas. I like CeeDee Lamb. I obviously love CeeDee Lamb. I think Dak Prescott has a pretty good game. I like Zeke to get another touchdown. I'm going to give the Cowboys, though, this win. I just feel like Derek Carr is going to go back to showing what truly was. I think Carolina is just bad, just worse than we thought they would be. And I think that the Saints are just able to take advantage of that last week, including Derek Carr. But I feel like the playmakers of New Orleans with Shaheed and Olave struggling last week, I think that's kind of going to be a thing going on in Dallas. I just love what Zimmer's doing now. I wasn't a big believer, but it took me 1 week to kind of buy in the way their defense played last week in Cleveland. So I'd like for them to kind of route them up a little bit. I'm going to go with 28-13 Dallas. I like Dak Prescott to give a couple tutties there, and I think Zeke gets one of those. An all-around route there, and I feel like Cowboys fans are going to be excited. They're going to be 2-0.
Yeah, I am in agreement with you. I think Dallas will win. I think we might get a sneaky sleeper game from Rico Dowdle.
Mm-hmm.
He had a tough, stingy defense to play against in the Browns last week. and I think he will take advantage, hopefully, with the lead that they hold in this game, as well as you mentioned Jalen Tolbert, but I think even Brandon Cooks, who had a touchdown last week, he might get in the end zone again. So I have Dallas, though. I have them 30-14. So we both have them kind of dominating the Saints at home. Moving to the next game, we have Tampa Bay at Detroit, a rematch of the divisional playoff round in the NFC. I have Detroit in this game, but looking just diving into it, I think it'll be closer to what we saw in the NFC divisional game instead of what we saw in the regular season when Detroit routed them. I think Tampa Bay, their offense looked very good last week, very powerful. 4 touchdowns from Baker. I think Evans is going to get in the end zone. I think Godwin's going to get in the end zone. I think Bucky Irving will get in the end zone. He played very well last night, playing the backup to Rachaad White. People are already calling for his name. I don't know if I'm going to jump that quickly because, Rachaad White had all the touches last year and did pretty well last week. But I think Bucky Irving shocked some people. And then on the Detroit side, I think it's a bounce back game for the receivers. Besides, obviously, Jameson Williams, who had a phenomenal game last week. But Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta, they're both going to get in the end zone. They're going to have a good game. I think Detroit's going to want to feature them more. As well as the running backs, I think one of them will do good, probably Jahmyr Gibbs, because Tampa Bay's run defense is a lot better than their pass defense is. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to give this one. I think actually I'm going to go with Montgomery. Another strong outing there. I just love the way they were able to ground and pound there with Montgomery. He was kind of just a lead back bowling ball, just forcing through defense. Got the game-winning touchdown in overtime last week. Not saying I think Jahmyr Gibbs also has a great game from the receiving out of the backfield. I like Jahmyr Gibbs to get about 4 or 5 catches for about 45 yards and a touchdown. I think actually I'm going to go a little higher, 60. I think he takes one out from 35 with a receiving tutty there for Jahmyr Gibbs. It's really tough to say who's going to have a great game for Detroit. So I'm going to give it, like you said, the pass catchers. I'm going to go in and say that it's going to be an Amon-Ra St. Brown game. We saw their running backs kind of feast last week, and I think Tampa Bay's kind of like adapting to that kind of game plan defensively. I think Dan Campbell's going to go another way, get it to Laporta, get it to Amon-Ra St. Brown. And Jameson Williams had a game where he might be a breakout this year. And we talked about him in the offseason, Justin, and we're very excited to see his opportunities with this offense. But I do like Amon-Ra St. Brown to get 6 catches, 145 yards and a touchdown. Laporta, I'm going to also say I'm going to have him 8 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. So pretty good fantasy days from their pass catchers. I think kind of everybody eats in the Detroit offense. I'm going to give Jared Goff 362 passing and 4 touchdowns. So, I just love the Lions when they play home. Another good thing about it is if they fall, Tampa Bay goes up 14, 21 nothing to start the game. I just love Jared Goff playing from behind. It may not end up in a Detroit Lions win, but Justin, it ends up in a big fantasy win because he puts up all those numbers. All the playmakers from Detroit eat, win or not. They're going to need to put up a ton of points. Dan Campbell is trying to prove that, hey, we are the best team in the NFC. And it makes this matchup so exciting as well because here at Doing Sports, I don't know about you, Justin, but I am not the biggest fan of Baker Mayfield. I think he had a little bit of a fluky kind of performance last week in Washington. I'm hoping he proves me wrong this week, Justin. So Baker Mayfield as well is going to have to put some big numbers in order to pull this victory out in Detroit.
I like what you're saying there. I completely agree. Detroit's going to ball. Moving to the next game, it features my start of the week at quarterback, Anthony Richardson it's the Colts against the Green Bay Packers, in a game which could have been easily the game of the week with Jordan Love being involved. Now that he is injured, it really dampers it a bit. But I really like the options in Indy with Anthony Richardson, of course, Jonathan Taylor. You got to still play Michael Pittman. I don't think I will trust Alec Pierce. I know he had 2 big plays last week, but I don't expect that. I would actually rather start Adonai Mitchell. He was missed on a couple throws last week. And then on the flip side, you have to start Josh Jacobs. And then I'm really unsure. I mean, you could do Jaden Reed. Obviously, he was the wide receiver 1 last week in all of fantasy football. But with Malik Willis, who has never thrown a touchdown pass in his professional career, I'm going to have to be out on all of those those Packers receivers. What do you think?
Yeah, I have to agree, Justin. I mean, I think that maybe Jaden Reed can do some damage off the ground through the rushing game. He did have a rushing touchdown last week, but I don't know if the absence of Jordan Love affects it at all. But the other pass catchers like Christian Watson and Dobbs, I definitely feel like it's definitely affected there. I think it's going to be Malik Willis starting if I'm calling it right.
Yeah.
Looking here at their depth chart, they don't really have a quarterback actually active on their active depth chart besides Malik Willis, so they might have to activate something there. Uh, um, Here's the thing though with the Packers, I don't know how Malik Willis is acclimated here into the offense, so I'm gonna feel like he's gonna be struggling. Um, so I would say this. I would say I'm gonna give the Colts a 21-16 victory. I do feel like the Packers do make it close. And so I'm gonna give the Colts, they lost last week pretty dramatically there to the Texans, and I feel like they're gonna be hustling there to get their first win.
Okay. Yeah, I do think the Colts are going to win as well. I have them. I have them dominating though. I think Malik Willis. He's only been there a couple weeks, and so I have worries that he will be able to do anything offensively besides just rely on Josh Jacobs out of the backfield. And so I have the Colts winning 35-10. I have them in a pretty dominant, winning in a pretty dominant fashion. Moving to the next game, we got the Jets at the Titans, and this one, it's two teams that underperformed last week, hoping to kind of flip the script, and I think it's going to be a great game from Garrett Wilson. I think he was featured really early and often. He had 4 catches in the first quarter. Then it really subsided. I don't know if that was due to defensive play call or what, but he started off hot and then he fell off. Looking at Rodgers, he looked pretty good. Wasn't very mobile, but he was hitting his throws. Brees Hall was doing great. And then on the flip side, nobody really surprised except Tony Pollard was a surprise of last week in Tennessee. But I expect it to be tougher than how San Francisco made it look last week. I think the Jets defense will kind of lock in and they will win this game. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what, Justin? I'm gonna have a hot take. If there's one hot take of the week, and I'm gonna actually put one of my starts of the week in here. I'm gonna implement that here as well. And I'm gonna go with a throwback vintage performance from the great Aaron Rodgers. We have not seen Aaron Rodgers have, even his last year in Green Bay, Justin, we struggled to see great moments from Aaron Rodgers. His first year without Devontae Adams, and he had Dobbs and Watson. They were rookies, and he was struggling to move the ball. So it's really been 2.5 years since we've seen a classic Aaron Rodgers performance. It's going to happen here. With as we go, here's the thing. I feel like in Tennessee, it's a great matchup. We're expecting Caleb Williams to have a great game against these Titans. I'm thinking this week it's going to be a throwback Rodgers performance. I'm thinking 362 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 100 quarterback rating there. No turnovers there for Mr. Rodgers. Garrett Wilson gets a touchdown. I think Lazard gets another touchdown receiving. Maybe Brees Hall gets a receiving touchdown. Or Justin, a guy that you like going into this year, Tyler Conklin gets a receiving touchdown there. So I think the Jets win pretty easily there. I'm going to give them a 31-17 victory there in Tennessee. Rodgers, gives us a classic performance. His, throwback passing styles, his quick throw off the snap there. And I just love Aaron Rodgers this week. He's one of my starts of this week. We're going to be looking at the TV and saying, who is that number 8 for Green Bay? It looks like that number 12, or who is that number 8 for New York? He looks like that number 12 from Green Bay many years ago. It's going to be Rodgers has a throwback, gets a win, and I like the Jets this week for sure.
Awesome. I love that take there. Aaron Rodgers looking to bounce back as the whole Jets team is. And then I have the Jets winning. I have them winning 23-17, so it'll be somewhat close, but I do think the Jets pull it out on the road. Moving to the next game, we got the Niners and the Vikings. Looking at this one on the Viking side, you got to start Jay Jettas, you got to start Aaron Jones, and then in San Francisco, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and then the running back position is the place of concern. Will CMC be back? We heard of his Achilles tendonitis and that he might be missing more time. So there is worry for him. Hopefully, if you're a CMC manager, you have Jordan Mason because he was the savior of Monday night. Be ready because you can flip one of those two guys, and I think they're both top 5 running back plays. Whoever is starting. And if McCaffrey is starting though, I would not start Jordan Mason. You got to roll with one of those guys. So that's the worry there. And then I do have some doubts about Brock Purdy in this matchup. The last time we saw Brock Purdy play against the Vikings, it was an upset loss in Minnesota. So we're kind of looking at the same story here. He threw for 270, a score, and 2 picks, and they lost this game. And I think it's going to be a similar story. I think the Vikings defense, although they played the Giants last week, which is the worst offense in the league, I think that defense is legit. And I think they show up in a big way, and I think they're going to steal this victory at home against the 49ers.
I'm going to go different around here, Justin. Here's one thing that I want to point out about the 49ers. Something just absolutely stinks about this team. Something reeks. There's something fishy going on with this team. However, I think they're still going to be able to go get it done and go on the road. And here's the thing. Here's something interesting here. Sam Darnold was a 49er last year. Was slated to start some games there for Purdy. I think Purdy had like an injury late in the season, if I'm not mistaken. I think Darnold may have played the last week of the year when the 49ers had already clinched their seeding there. So it's going to be interesting. Does Darnold, have his resurgence kind of game? You mentioned they did play the Giants, so it's not, too much of an impressive victory there. But they are home. I do feel like the San Francisco defense is going to struggle. So if you do have the 49ers defense out there, I suggest you sit them or maybe kind of drop them for another, maybe like a Chargers that are at Carolina, a Chiefs, maybe a Washington. I just feel like Minnesota at home, I feel like Jettis is going to get his. So obviously Jettis is going to get his 100 yards, 1 touchdown. As far as, the 49ers, I'm just worried about McCaffrey this whole year. I have this feeling, Justin, that we might not see him all year. Like, that's a true possibility that we do not see, Christian McCaffrey all year. And that is a very scary thought, not only for us fantasy fans, but for the 49ers there. They have Jordan Mason there kind of doing his thing. And Isaac Griendo is the next player on the depth chart there behind Jordan Mason. So maybe we see one of those. You never know what you're going to see out of Kyle Shanahan and his running game. So you never know. It might not be really a Jordan Mason game. He might be quiet. And so I'm going to give the 49ers a slight victory. They pull it away late, 28-24. I do think Darnold kind of sparks there, moves the offense around as best as he can, is able to get, some scores on there. I just feel like San Francisco pulls away late in that game. Purdy struggles kind of, but I think he makes the plays when it matters most to win them that football game.
Nice. I'll throw in my score real quick. I think the Vikings will win 21-20. It'll be very close, and I'm interested to see how that game unfolds. Moving to the next game on the slate, the next couple of games are I think will be the toughest watches of the week, but this one is Seattle at New England. Seattle looked, to me, pretty awful, especially in that first half against the Broncos last week. Their offensive line might be the worst in football. Without Ken Walker playing really well last week, they would have lost that game. But now they come into this week with a questionable Ken Walker. If he is to miss, I would have some, worries about if this team can produce on the road. I would be looking to Zach Charbonnet as a pretty good play though. If Ken Walker were to miss. As for the receivers in Seattle, I think I'd be worried about a lot of them. I think DK Metcalf is going to draw Christian Gonzalez, which is one of the best young corners in football. So I'm a little worried about DK. I think JSN might be a little sleeper play, being that, under the radar target. And then Lockett, who actually was, I believe, the best of the 3 last week, he's kind of in that same range, a low are probably a high end wide receiver 4. So somebody I'm probably not starting. As for the Patriots, it's only Ramondre Stevenson that's worth a look, and I think you have to start him, especially with the usage he was getting last week.
Yeah, Justin, I actually am on the Patriots bandwagon now, Justin. What they did in Cincinnati has me a believer. Tickets are getting very pricey there at Gillette Stadium. It is going to be rocking there. They have a new era there. You know, Boston fans are as passionate sports fans as they come. They are going to fill that stadium up to the brim. They have a new era there, a new head coach who is very promising. Could be a candidate there for coach of the year there, Gerard Mayo. I love what he's doing. Now, here's the thing when it comes to fantasy. Now, I'm going to break it down real quick. With the Patriots, like you mentioned, you're starting Ramondre Stevenson all year because he's going to get the touches. He's going to get the volume. The pass catchers you're staying away from. You're not starting any Patriots pass catchers there. Their defense now is very interesting to look at now, Justin. I do not think Geno Smith goes in there and throws for 250, 300 yards, a couple of touchdowns. I think he's going to struggle drastically there. And it's going to depend if Kenneth Walker is there or not. If Kenneth Walker is not there, I do like Charbonnet to get a touchdown, a total about 80 yards from scrimmage. He is pretty good when filling in for Kenneth Walker. I do think last year's Thanksgiving game between the Seahawks and the 49ers on that Thanksgiving night game, Charbonnet did pretty good. Pretty good. The 49ers defense was much more stout last year, and Charbonnet was able to perform in the absence of Ken Walker in that game. So that's something that I remember. But hey, Charbonnet is going to be a pretty good DFS DraftKings kind of guy. He's going to be low salary there. So definitely if Ken Walker were to miss, I like Charbonnet there as a sneaky start there in not only in fantasy leagues, but definitely in DraftKings and FanDuel Daily Fantasy. I'm a little worried about DK. I'm going to have to start him in one of my leagues because I drafted him pretty high. I'm not excited about it at all. I think this is going to be a game that Geno's going to struggle. It's going to look ugly. I think both teams are going to struggle kind of offensively. But I do like the Patriots to win 17-9.
All right. That's funny. We were almost we're in the same wavelength there. I have Patriots also pulling out the victory at home 17-13. So close game, ugly offense. Honestly, both defenses might be good streaming options for fantasy. But yeah, nothing too crazy there. Moving to the next game, we got the Giants at the Commanders. I'm starting Jaden Daniels pretty confidently in this game. He was a top 10 quarterback in week 1 in a blowout loss. I think Brian Robinson's worth the start. Aaron Jones looked really good against that Giants defense last week. And although they have a good pass rush, I think Brian Robinson will be able to get a lot of touches and get a score. McLaurin, I will wait for a week before I want to start him. He was not featured much in the first game against Tampa Bay, and even in a game where they were losing by a ton, he still wasn't getting the looks. It was a lot of Jaden Daniels running it himself. I don't expect that to fully go away. I do expect it to come down. And as for the Giants, you can go Malik Neighbors. That's where that line ends. But yeah, I'm not super excited about this game. I do think Washington will pull it out at home, though.
Yeah, absolutely, Justin. I feel like Jaden Daniels is going to set the tone there with 2 rushing touchdowns to start that game there. I think B-Rob gets a touchdown. The pass catchers, I am a little hesitant to start McLaurin there. It's all depending if, you have, some guys there injured. I don't think there's too many star wide receivers there injured. So McLaurin is a great flex play, I believe. I think he could get 8. I wouldn't say 8. I would say about 5 to 6 catches, maybe about 100 yards. I don't know if he scores. But the storyline there, I think the defense could kind of stepped up there. I know last week in Tampa, the Washington defense was just shredded by Baker Mayfield. I just feel like they might be just a better team. So I think that's why I think, with the Giants, they might be one of the worst teams in the league. And like I mentioned, Daniel Jones has lost all confidence in himself. I think so many more people believe in him than he believes in his own self. They asked Brian Daboll, I think it was yesterday, if they're considering any quarterback options, and Daboll just said no confidently. Obviously, Daboll could be just, lying or just, putting on a show. But, they believe in Daniel Jones, and I feel like they might go this route. If they go 0-6 or 0-7 midway season, maybe they make the change. But right now, they seem very content with Daniel Jones, and there's no, sense of urgency to change things up there. So I feel like the Giants, they just want that first pick next year. I believe it. And so Washington, they're going to be home. They want to show the home crowd and that new ownership that hey, Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, they have a good coaching staff to win a football game. And I like be on the lookout though for Eckler, Austin Eckler. He could get a receiving touchdown as well. And I like the Commanders to win. I would say 21-6. 21-6 Commanders.
All right, I think the Giants will find some sort of life in this game. I
Okay.
think Washington's defense is really bad. I do think the Commanders will pull out the victory though, 28-21. And maybe like a tidbit that's kind of interesting. Daniel Jones last year, week 1, he played the Cowboys, and they lost 40-3, and he was one of the worst quarterbacks on the week. Week 2 comes by and he plays the Cardinals, and he was the quarterback 1 on the week in week 2. He gets a similar situation where they get smoked and then they play a bad defense. So Daniel Jones could be a sleeper. I do think they lose that game though. Moving to the next game, we got the Chargers at the Panthers, and I got a lot to talk about in this game. One being J.K. Dobbins. He is back, baby, and I love it. I picked him last year. He tore his Achilles. It was a sad story. I picked him, 3 years ago when he tore his ACL. It's a sad story. He's been recovering ever since. He comes in week 1 and gets 10 carries for 135 and a score. He looked great. His burst was not amazing. Obviously, he got tackled on those 2 big runs, but he looked great. He broke a big tackle to score a touchdown. He is my start of the week. It's a great matchup against the Panthers. Kamara looked really good against them last week, so I think that JK has a huge game. As for the wide receivers and Justin Herbert, they're kind of low-end starts that you could play if you really need them. I think they'll have similar games as they did last week. 50 yards and a score, 250 and 2 touchdowns. Nothing otherworldly, but something consistent. As for the Panthers, I'm not excited about anything there. I would love to bring up Deontay Johnson, but I need to see the Panthers hit before I want to get on that train.
Yeah, Justin, I'm going to be optimistic here. I'm going to say, obviously, the Chargers win. I'm going to give them a victory 21-16. But I do think we see flashes from Bryce Young and Deontay Johnson. I think they hook up on a score. I do think they missed an extra point there. It's just Carolina. I want to believe in them. I'm gonna give them one more week there. I think that they're home. They have a new coach. They have their number 1 pick from a year ago, and so I feel like hey, they need to prove that they can win some football games there. And I want to give Carolina an upset victory, but after what I saw last week against the Saints and Derek Carr, I'm not all the way convinced. I do think they have a better game. I think they could kind of get to Justin Herbert there defensively. And with the Chargers, I only give them 21 points to score. I think they kind of get all rushing touchdowns there with Gus Edwards. You mentioned, J.K. Dobbins. We're so happy that he's back there. He was so fun to watch when he was at Ohio State, and he had so much promise on those, tough pounding ground there with the Ravens there. They're always running the football, and I'm glad now that he has his second chance, with Jim Harbaugh and this Chargers, offense that needs, a running back for sure after, all the departures that they had offensively last offseason or this past offseason. So I'm going to give the Chargers 21-16. However, Justin, I am putting the Chargers on upset alert. I do think this is kind of like one of those victories that the Panthers had last year against my beloved Texans, but they kind of scrape one out at the end. It's not pretty, but hey, they get a victory. But I'm going to go with the Chargers just to keep it safe. But just know, Justin, this game isn't quite attractive on either side there, fantasy-wise. No one's really going to be starting Deontay Johnson, I don't think, this week, or Bryce Young. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle game. The Chargers break away late, but it won't be pretty.
Okay. I actually think that the Chargers defense is one of the better defensive streaming plays this week. I think that they looked really good against the Raiders. Now they're playing an offense that is worse than the Raiders are. So I think that's this score will be 23-14. So I think the Panthers will get a garbage time touchdown to make the lead look a little less colorful. Moving to the next game, we got the Cleveland Browns at the Jaguars. 2 teams that kind of underwhelmed on offense, especially last week. I don't love the Jacksonville, the options on offense this week, even though they are at home. But I'm not a huge fan of the Cleveland offense with no David Njoku. I think Jerome Ford is definitely worth the start. He looked good last week, and he's playing a better matchup. Even though Jacksonville was able to limit the running backs, the Dolphins running backs last week on the ground. I know HN got a bunch of catches, but they didn't have very good yards per carry. So I think Jacksonville's rushing defense might be something that will be tough for Jerome Ford. But I think one of those wide receivers for Cleveland has to have a good week. If it's Cooper, if it's Judy, somebody's getting in the end zone. I'll put my money on Amari Cooper, but I wouldn't be surprised if Judy is the one. And then Jacksonville, if I have to pick a wide receiver, I'm going to have to give it to Christian Kirk this week. He underwhelmed, but I think in a game that, Cleveland's a scary defense, and I think that Kirk will be the reliable piece for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, Justin, honestly, looking at these two teams, I don't know how to pick this, to be honest, but I'm going to give the edge to the home team. They're healthier there, and I just don't like what I saw of Deshaun Watson last week. There was just no fight out of him. Even though the Cowboys defense were the better unit, I just like Deshaun Watson lacked a lot of drive. I feel like he lost a lot of his hunger. Getting that contract, obviously, whatever's been going on off the field, maybe has been getting it to him as well. And it's just sad to see it. Honestly, I don't really know how to look at the Browns this year. It seems as if they're better without Deshaun Watson. I mean, they had a great back half of the season last year with Joe Flacco. I mean, could this be kind of the same thing where this year, some point this year, that Jameis Winston leads them to better victories and better fantasy guys? I mean, what if we see more out of Amari Cooper and Judy becomes a great wide receiver too? And maybe when Njoku gets back, he becomes a top 5 tight end. It's very concerning as a Browns, if you're a Browns fan. I don't like this matchup. I feel like on the Jacksonville side, Trevor Lawrence has a better game than we think. Maybe he hits 3 tutties there. I'm not saying he gets 300 yards. I'm thinking 223 passing and 3 touchdowns for Trevor Lawrence. I think actually, you mentioned Christian Kirk. I think he has a good game, but I actually like the rookie to kind of add on to what he did last week there, scoring on Jalen Ramsey. I think Brian Thomas there kind of, shows that he is the number one there. And so maybe, ETN gets a receiving touchdown. So I think the Jacksonville offense rolls a little bit better than compared on the road in Miami. I like them at home. I'm going to give them a 28-20 victory over the Browns. I feel like Jerome Ford does help move the chains there for Cleveland, but it all comes down to Deshaun Watson once again struggling there. I think that Jacksonville defense gets some stops there, gets a turnover, and Jacksonville wins there by 8.
I think Jacksonville will win too. I have it a 24-20 victory. I just think I'm looking at the storylines of it, and if Jacksonville loses this game at home, I think there's going to be a lot of worry in the streets as if they're going to, be one of the 10 worst teams in the league if they can't pull it out at home. I mean, they were literally a yard away from winning on the road in Miami with Travis Etienne almost hitting that end zone and then getting the ball punched out. So they were close to winning that game. They lost on a game-losing field goal by Jason Sanders. So I do think they pull it out 24-20. Cleveland goes 0-2 and starts, hopefully, just switch it to Jameis. I completely agree with you. Jameis would be so much better for fantasy. He'd make that team exciting, and I think they'd be a better team, for it, even past the fantasy aspect. So I have the same thoughts there. Moving to the next game, we got the Raiders at the Ravens, and I'm looking at this. Lamar, obviously, major start. You start Mark Andrews. If you were able to pick up Isaiah Likely, start him. Zay Flowers is a start, as well as Derrick Henry. On the Raiders side, you start Devontae Adams. But a guy I'm really worried about is Zamir White this week. I think he wasn't featured as much, and now he plays a defense that is better than the Chargers are. So I do have worry for Zamir White this week. But what do you think?
Yeah, Justin, I'm going to say my start of the week is for sure the Baltimore Ravens defense. I just don't think Minshew is going to be able to move the football at all. The Ravens had a pretty difficult loss. That's one thing. To start the season, a very difficult loss. I mean, it's just as difficult as you get to the team that beats you in the playoffs, in your season. Not only that, Justin, Lamar could not get to his other pass catchers there. besides Likely and Flowers there. So I feel like this is going to be an all around rebound game from the Ravens. They need to get back in that victory standing. The Steelers there, they had a pretty impressive victory on the road. They're going to be leading that division. So the Ravens need to get this one there. I don't think Minshew is able to move the football there. As far as fantasy, obviously you're starting Lamar. He could be the start of the week. I feel like he's going to have a great game rushing the football there, Justin. And he could get a couple passing. So I think I'm going to give Lamar 3 total touchdowns and 350 total yards. He could get about 80 rushing yards. He went over 100 last week, so I feel like this week is going to be a little bit down, 80 to 85 there. With the Raiders, obviously you're starting Adams. Zamir White is going to get stopped. I don't feel like the Ravens defense is going to let him do too much. Pacheco, he had a rushing touchdown, but if you take that away last week, he only had about 45 rushing yards. And Pacheco is pretty good. We love Pacheco this year all around. So I feel like Zamir White might struggle more in Baltimore there. I'm going to give the Ravens a 38-13 victory. Just a sleeper there. I like Brock Bowers there to get 7 or 8 catches. He did pretty good. The thing is Mayer there, the second string tight end, who they drafted in 2023. I feel like he might get in a little bit of the shares there for Bowers, but overall, Ravens just play a good, clean game. They get the victory. Raiders struggle big time. And Devontae Adams is going to be in this postgame very upset. He's going to be upset with the quarterback play. And it's going to be some discussions, I feel like, some very difficult discussions there in Vegas. I don't know what they're going to do, but it's going to be very disappointing. But I do have the Ravens winning big there.
Yeah, honestly, you read my mind. I had the Ravens winning 38-17. So we both have them winning with that 38 mark. But I do really like Baltimore in a major bounce back victory. Moving to the 3:00 slate, we got the Rams at the Cardinals, and boy, do both of these teams lost really close games last week, and they're coming in, and the Rams are coming in shorthanded. They had some O-line injuries as well as Puka Nacua being put on IR, so there's some worries there, and they're on the road in Arizona. And then on the Arizona side, it was an underwhelming loss. Like it was close somehow, but most of the players on Arizona underwhelmed besides James Conner. Marvin Harrison only got a catch. McBride, although he had 9 targets, only had 30 yards on those 9 targets. And Kyler Murray only had the 1 touchdown. So I expect a bounce back for the Cardinals, and I expected enough for them to get a victory. I think Kyler Murray's a great start. You got to keep up with your guys in Arizona, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, James Conner. I think Greg Dortch is a phenomenal DFS play this week. He's pretty cheap, and he could slide right in there, one of your wide receivers. As for the Rams, you got to start Cooper Kupp. He's already I'm already listing him as a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy again. Kyron Williams is a must start. He actually had his best 2 games last year against the Cardinals. And then, lastly, I have a sleeper that I think I'd argue is a start and would be a perfect tight end streamer for you guys. Colby Parkinson for the Los Angeles Rams. He factors in as the, de facto starter. And now with Puka out, there's going to be more targets up for grabs. So I expect a huge game from him, as well as Matthew Stafford, because the Arizona Cardinals defense is pretty poor. Yeah.
Justin, you took the direct thoughts out of my mind. And I was thinking, you mentioned Kyron Williams. He's going to be my start of the weeks there with the running backs there. I just feel like Arizona has such a weak defense. They let Josh Allen run all over them. And this time they're going to be, the Rams are going to be in a close stadium again. And, I like what I saw to Kyron Williams last week. I was a little worried that maybe they might start implementing Blake Corum there. But it seems like that's going to be a thing later on in the season. So I feel like that for the first half of the season, we're going to see a lot of Kyron. He's going to get a lot of volume. I've noticed in, the Sean McVay era, he has not been the most running backs by committee guy. When he wanted Todd Gurley, it was straight Todd Gurley. With Cam Akers, it was straight Cam Akers. When he got hurt, it was straight up, Darrell Henderson. And even last year, when Kyron took over, it was all Kyron Williams. It wasn't like he was sharing. So I feel like you can trust Kyron Williams. He's going to be the start of the week, Justin. I'm going to give Kyron Williams 126 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and I would say about 4 catches for about 40 yards there for Kyron Williams. So a great fantasy there. He's going to get about 25 to 31 carries there.
Wow.
And I love Kyren Williams being that full workhorse. Now, this game's going to be fun to watch, though, Justin. I'm going to have, I'm going to give the I'm going to give the Rams the win here. They
Okay.
lost last week, and they're better coached. I think the Cardinals are going to put an impressive performance, but I do have the Rams winning 38-35. Cooper Kupp a great game. Kyren Williams a great game. Here's one person to watch for though for the Rams though, who could be a sneaky waiver wire target, and that is Jordan Whittington. Now he is listed as the wide receiver 3 there, or wide receiver 4 actually, under Cooper, Demarcus Robinson, and Tyler Johnson. But Jordan Whittington got some, preseason play, some highlight play. So be on the lookout for number. I think he's 88 there. He could
Yeah.
get some targets there. I like Stafford, and as far as the Cardinals, I do think Marvin Harrison gets his first career touchdown as well as his first career 100-yard game.
Wow.
Kyler, pretty good. He's going to have a couple scores from his legs there, a couple scores throwing. I like McBride. This is going to be an overall shootout, a fun game to watch. I think whoever has the ball last will win the game. It could be a back-to-back OT game for the Rams, but I'm going to keep it simple and just say they win in regulation 38-35.
I'm gonna have a score of 34-31, but the Cardinals get the victory at home. So it's pretty interesting. That's only our second differing pick today. You have Rams, I have Cardinals, as well as the Vikings Niners. So I like when we have a little different. We go back and forth.
Yeah.
See who pulls out that victory. Moving to the next game, we got the Steelers at the Broncos, and boy, am I so happy I got to scoop up the Steelers defense on the waiver wire. They were my first claim in most of my leagues that they were available in. I think against Bo Nix, there's going to be TJ Watt's going to be raining down on the Broncos offensive line and their rookie quarterback, only in his second start ever. So I expect a huge game from the Steelers defense. They are must starts, and if they're available at all, you are starting them. As for the rest of the players in this game, I'm starting no Broncos. I'm already kind of pivoting on my big take for Javonte Williams this season. I wanted him to be more involved early in that game against Seattle. He was not. Jaleel McLaughlin ended up with more touches and carries. I have a lot of hope in Javonte, but it is dwindling by the week. And the Steelers, George Pickens looked phenomenal last week. He was getting all the big catches, was the main target in the offense. And with Justin Fields staying at quarterback, even Fields is a good start this week. I think you can start both of those guys and Najee Harris. So I think it's going to be a really good game from Pittsburgh.
I was just saying, wouldn't it be interesting if Russell Wilson was playing this game, the second week
Right.
of the season,
Revenge
going back
game.
to Denver? I don't know what they're going to do at the quarterback position there at Pittsburgh. I'm not sure if they officially named Fields as the starter, but it wouldn't be surprising, Justin, if they were just like, hey, we're actually going to go with Russell here. But hey, the Steelers, they have something good here. They're already 1-0, and they have a fairly easy matchup there. It's tough to play there at Empower Field in Denver. It's always been tough. You can make the argument that in the career of Tom Brady, he's struggled the most in Denver, even though he was able to get some wins. A lot of powerful losses there. So if the GOAT is able to struggle in Denver, I feel like any team is. And this is a game where if it's Fields or Russell, they could actually struggle there. But when you look at Denver offensively, it's crazy. They have Sean Payton, one of the better minds. If you would have asked any of us a couple years ago when he was with the Saints, I feel like he's gone down there, Justin. And even, I know he doesn't have a future Hall of Fame quarterback, but Sean Payton has struggled to wow us there in Denver. And so I feel like the Steelers are going to once again score 18 points like they did last week, and they're going to win 18-16. It's going to be an ugly, rough game. If it's Fields playing, I have him getting a rushing touchdown. If it's Russell, which I don't think it will be, but it would be kind of fun to see Russell come back to Denver. If there's one game out of this whole season that I want to see Russell Wilson play for the Steelers, it's this game, just because he's going to get a massive boo ovation there in Denver. But I do think the Steelers break away late. You mentioned TJ Watt. Justin, he might actually just be the runaway favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. He was all over the Falcons last week. I mean, every single time I switched over to Red Zone and the Falcons were offense, it was always TJ Watt with all the attention. And he was just getting up from sacking or breaking a tackle. I mean, he is going to be able to feast on this kind of weak Denver offensive line. And I do think that's going to be the X factor there. And obviously, the Steelers are one of the starts of the week there at defense. I'm not excited about anybody there in Denver, so I'll give the Steelers there the win 18-16 as they start off 2-0 without even having a home game.
Yeah, no, I agree with the Pittsburgh train. I do think that they're going to dominate a little bit more. I have a 23-7 victory for the Steelers. And it's not going to be that, I think Denver has some promise to grow this year, but it won't be this week. Moving to the next game, we got Bengals at the Chiefs. In a game that would normally be a game of the year, this game is looking uglier by the second, and it's because of the Bengals. Joe Burrow looked awful last week. The whole team looked really bad. We're hoping T. Higgins can come back this week, and another week with, Jamar Chase can make them a little bit better. But I think the Chiefs are gonna dominate. I love Rashid Rice, Isaiah Pacheco, Worthy could be a good flyer. I think he's gonna boom or bust like he did last week. Mahomes, of course, you're starting. Kelsey, of course, you're starting. And on the Bengals side, you got to start Jamar. And I really would be hesitant to start anybody else. The Chiefs are a really good defense, and Joe Burrow starts out season slow, and I don't know if this week is one of the weeks that he can kind of bounce back in a big way.
Yeah, Justin, I'm very concerned for this Bengals team. I want everybody to remember that just a few years ago, before the AFC Championship, the mayor of Cincinnati had some words for the Chiefs. They took it real personal, and they were able to break away from that victory. I feel like they still remember those words, Justin. And one of the guys that had an issue with it was Travis Kelsey, who didn't have a really good game last week in the opener. He's had some time to rest and travel. Obviously, he's been kind of busy off the field. He was at some events this past weekend at the U.S. Open, I believe, and he's rested. He's ready to go. He's going to feast on this Chiefs defense. 8 catches, 136 yards, and 2 touchdowns for the future Hall of Famer there. One of the best tight ends of all time. He remembers those words, Justin. They are home, and every single time, Travis Kelsey only has a year or two in this league, as he mentioned last week. From here on out, he will be the Bengal killer, the Bengal torture, the Bengal tamer, as you will, and he will have a big game. He is my no doubt start of the week. He is going to cook this defense up. Patrick Mahomes is as well. I wouldn't say he's the start of the week because, come on, he is the best quarterback in the league. But Travis Kelsey, he struggled last week, but he is no doubt the start of the week. And you could say that the Chiefs defense as well as the start of the week. If the Patriots defense can go in there in Cincinnati last week and put on a show, can you imagine what the best defense in the league, the reigning Super Bowl champions? Not to mention that I don't think T. Higgins is going to play, Justin. I also want to add that I don't think T. Higgins' heart and mind and soul is in it with this team. Part of me believes that T. Higgins wants out. I think that it's worse in the Brandon Ayuk situation in so many ways. And I think that Jamar Chase, little by little, is pulling away from this team, and it's hurting them. It's hurting them that they are not all in with their receivers there in Cincinnati. The management, the ownership is not all in with what they drafted, what got them to the Super Bowl a handful of years ago, what got them to 2 straight AFC Championship appearances. They're falling away little by little. They already got rid of Mixon, who shined last week with the Texans. And Zach Moss is he did score a touchdown, but is he going to be able to move the chains in Kansas City? So that's going to be what I'm going to be looking for, actually. Can the Bengals move the football without Jamar Chase? And T. Higgins, obviously Chase will play, but are they able to get to somebody else? Gesicki, I think he almost scored a touchdown last week. I think Cincinnati's going to struggle. That offensive line has never been good, and that D line for the Chiefs is so solid. Chris Jones is now the best defensive tackle in the league with Aaron Donald retiring. And he's just getting better, Justin. He is just getting better. And he's been in the league for quite some time. And so the Chiefs are going to roll. I'm going to give them a 31-20 victory there in Kansas City. Travis Kelsey is going to have a massive, great game.
Yeah, I have Kansas City also winning this game. I have it being 34-21. I do think the Bengals will get a few scores in, hopefully lock in a little bit more because their biggest rivals are the Chiefs. So hopefully there's a little bit more fight in Cincinnati than what we saw last week. Moving to Sunday Night Football in Houston, Texas. We got the Chicago Bears playing the Texans, and in this game, I think the storyline after this game, obviously, CJ Stroud is a top MVP candidate, but also how good Houston Texans defense plays against Caleb Williams and company. I'm not looking to start any Bears player besides DJ Moore. If Keenan Allen plays, maybe, because now Rome Odunze is injured. But I don't want to start Caleb. I don't want to start Swift. And then Houston, you got to start everyone there. Even though Chicago played really well on defense last week, I think all Texans deserve a start. Maybe not Dalton Schultz, but you got to go with Mixon, Diggs, Collins, Stroud, Dell, all their starts. And I think it's going to be a game where Houston flexes their muscles, and actually they're going to win a game that's not close. It's going to be a pretty big blowout.
Justin, man, do I love to hear in Houston Sunday night. Justin, it's been so long since my beloved Houston Texans have hosted a Sunday night football game. I want to say the last time we were able to host one could have been in the Deshaun Watson era for sure. Probably I would have said it was against the Patriots. It's Tom Brady's last year in New England. That had to have been I think the most sure for sure the last time we hold a Sunday night game. I know the last time we had a primetime game was a Thursday night.
Against the Eagles, right?
Against the Eagles, right? I know we had a Monday night football game to end the season last year when CJ Stroud was able to clinch that division. I don't really count that. But, man, it's so good to be back on Sunday night football. It's been so long. I'm excited to see what CJ Stroud can do in his Sunday night football debut there. You know, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So I'm not worried about my beloved Texans. I am a little bit worried on how Caleb Williams can perform. Now, in one of my leagues, I might have to start Caleb Williams there. I am not sure. I'm still deciding. But he's going to have to put on some points there. What he did last week, it was cool that the Bears defense was able to bring that team back. But it's not going to be a thing this upcoming week. Diggs or Tank or Nico Collins, one of them's going to eat. I feel like the Texans are going to be able to move the football quite easily there. So Caleb Williams is going to need to be on his best behavior. He's going to need to go out there and be the Caleb Williams that we knew and loved there at USC in college. You know, and that he's going to need to move that football there. Justin, one thing that I need to mention that I wanted to tell you, I do not like Matt Eberflus at all. In fact, I think he's gotten worse as a play caller. And I feel like that showed a lot last week because, Justin, historically, rookie quarterbacks, they adapt pretty easily within the first couple weeks. You know, Anthony Richardson was off to a great start last year. You know, I know CJ Stroud had a rough week one, but he was off to the bat there. You're looking at a few years ago, Joe Burrow was able to adapt quickly there. And it's just, you know, they need to be able to move the football there. Eberflus is not the guy, but he needs to prove that he is. And I'm a little hesitant to start Caleb Williams. I might have to I have a personal injury with Jordan Love there. So Caleb Williams is going to need to shine there. If not, the Bears have no chance winning this football game. I am going to give the Texans a 28-24 victory there. I just feel like the Texans defense has a little bit of holes there, which allows Caleb to score. But it could go a way that you predicted. It could be a blowout because what we saw from the Bears offense last week was just awful. If that defense did not help them to that victory, if that special teams did not help them to that victory, it would have been awful. And Caleb probably would have had a turnover and not even 93 passing yards or whatever he had. He probably would have had just like 40. So they're going to need to get the ball quickly to DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Otherwise, they will not win this football game.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's going to be a lot of things that Chicago needs to do, specifically on the offensive side, to hang with CJ Stroud and the Texans, but I don't think they will. And I have a 24-9 victory for Houston. Moving to Monday night, capping off the week 2 slate, we have the Atlanta Falcons going into Philadelphia, going into Lincoln Financial. I think it's going to be a bounce back game for Atlanta. I think they will finally step up a little bit. I know Kirk Cousins in primetime is a shaky topic to talk about, but I think they played a hard defense last week. I think Pittsburgh is one of the better defenses in the league. And coming into, playing against Philly showed some weaknesses on the defense against Green Bay. That game was a very exciting one to watch last week. And I think Atlanta, Drake London will get his. I think Bijan will finally get in the end zone. Kyle Pitts is an interesting one. We'll see on that one. But I do think big games are coming for Drake and Bijan. And then on the Philly side, you got to start all of your guys. that you would normally start. Hurts, Barkley, AJ, and Devonta Smith. I think Devonta Smith is a very good play this week. And I think it's going to be a very good game, and I think Philly will come out on top at home though.
Justin, I'm very concerned for the Atlanta Falcons offense there. I just don't like what I saw to Kirk Cousins. And now they go on the road. Justin, you mentioned Kirk Cousins on the road on prime time. I mean, it's never been great, Justin. I mean, he is not good on the road on Monday Night Football. I mean, I know he got his first victory last year against the 49ers. That was his last game that he played before he tore his his ACL. But Justin, I want to tell you something. Kirk Cousins' record on Monday Night Football is 3-10. 3-10. And it's just not fun. And I feel like he's gonna have a lot of difficulty moving the football there. I'm hoping Bijan Robinson can set the tone. But I feel like there's gonna be some bad games from Drake London. I feel like there might be a bad game from Kyle Pitts, even though he scored a touchdown last week. So I'm really hoping that Kirk Cousins can go out there and be on his A game. On the Philly side, like you mentioned, we're starting everybody there. I think this might be a Devonta Smith game, but you can't underestimate what Saquon Barkley's having. I like Saquon Barkley so far as a dark horse MVP candidate there. I know we never really give running backs MVP, just like last year when McCaffrey had a dominant year and he did not even get the MVP. But I do like I like Barkley so far after week 1 to be a dark horse MVP candidate there. I think he has another great outing there. I think a total of 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts does his thing. I'm going to give the Eagles a 28-10 victory. I think that the Eagles defense is a sneaky start there, a sneaky play. I think that they get to Kirk Cousins there. I don't think he's mobile enough to, survive that ruckus Eagles crowd there in Philly, Justin. And so 28-10 is my, prediction there. And back-to-back weeks there, the Falcons are only scoring 10 points. And, it provides some conversation there in Atlanta. Do we go with the rookie that we drafted early? So it's going to be very interesting to see what the conversations are Tuesday morning with the Falcons. But I do have the Eagles there taking it.
I also have Philadelphia pulling out the victory. I have the score being 26-17. So they get, right under a double-digit, win. But I think Atlanta has to show some more life. Or I agree, there will be some internal conversations on if Kirk Cousins will be somebody that they can rely on rest of the season. But that wraps up all 16 games. We threw in our starts of the week as well as our sit. And let's wrap up the episode with our kicker of the week. And I'm gonna use a kicker that we just mentioned his team, and I'm gonna go in with Jake Elliott of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think, obviously last week the Atlanta Falcons gave up 6 field goals to Chris Boswell. I'm not saying Jake's going to get that much, but I think Philadelphia will be in scoring position most of this game, and I think Jake Elliott will be in position to get a lot of kicks, extra points, and field goals as well at home. I expect a huge game from Jake Elliott.
There's so many kickers, Justin, to look at here. I think, Justin, I might just go with Butker, but that's too easy of a pick there. So why don't we just go with Ka'imi Fairbairn again on Sunday night? I mean, Justin, this guy was phenomenal last week in Indianapolis, and they're going to be in another close stadium in Houston. I don't think they'll open the roof there, NRG. They might. But I do like Ka'imi Fairbairn there to nail a couple long range field goals there on Sunday night. I feel like the Bears defense is pretty good. We can't underestimate them. So I do think they'll be able to stop CJ Stroud a little bit once they get into Chicago territory. And I feel like there's going to be some, field goal before halftime, a couple, maybe a 45, a 50-yard here and there. And I feel like fantasy-wise, Ka'imi Fairbairn, again, is going to finish as one of the top kickers. Obviously, last week, Justin, we had so many great kickers there in the week there. And that's never really been a thing, Justin. I think you and I started a new trend with we predict the kickers, and all of a sudden kickers are now scoring more than quarterbacks, which is crazy. So I do like Ka'imi Fairbairn there to have a great game. Honestly, I wanted to say the Detroit kicker. I'm not sure what they're doing there in Detroit with the kickers. I'm not sure if Bagley's back there.
I think he's out for the season. I think he got hurt.
I think he might be out for the seasons there. So I'm not sure what Detroit's doing there at kicker there. They're not listed here. So I wanted to say the Detroit Lions kicker, whoever they go with there. But if not, I like Amy Fairburn.
Nice. I think that's a good kicker to do. Miami had a great week. Houston's one of those teams that'll always be in scoring position on most drives, so good pick there. But yeah, that wraps up the episode. This is going to be our last episode of the week. So use all of this information we are throwing at you for, setting your fantasy lineups. Obviously, football starts tonight as you're listening to this with the Bills and the Dolphins. So listen to it through all the way through though. There starts on the on Monday night that are needed discussing as well as throughout Sunday. So stay tuned for next week. We'll have our recap. We'll have waiver wire talk. We'll have all of the above. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. If you made it all the way through with us, an hour and 5 minutes in, it's pretty impressive stuff. And as always, send us out.
Dewey Nation, we love you guys. Hey, it is so exciting now to be going into week 2, Justin. And this is so much fun going in through each week as we learn about all these NFL teams. Who's the best, who's not, who's struggling, who's on the upcome. So, Dewey Nation, we love you guys. We love playing fantasy football. We love playing daily fantasy. So we just love doing this for you guys. Go ahead and leave a comment, a like. Send this to a couple friends, a couple people you may know. Just, hey, Dewey Nation, if you know anybody that's struggling fantasy-wise, don't hesitate to send them our way. Justin and I just love to talk fantasy day in and day out, just by the second. So, Dewey Nation, we love you guys. Thank you for watching. And as always, peace.